They don't pay us to think. They pay us to know. We know we can beat them. There's no excuses why we shouldn't. Win the game, period. W's on 3, man. Let's go. W on 3. 1, 2, 3, W.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sisters. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. Here to talk to you today about the top 5 things the Washington Redskins will do. Not what I think they're going to do. I am guaranteeing these 5 items will take place in the 2019 NFL Draft. The Redskins will do these 5 things. Stick around for the guarantees I am giving you. Take these to the bank. The Redskins will execute these 5 things in the upcoming 2019 NFL Draft. But before we get to that, I just want to say this. We have to draft better. As an organization, we have to draft better. We don't draft well enough so that at the end of these contracts, we want to retain these players. And you look at the departure of Jamison Crowder. He should have been back in Washington. Now, maybe he got more money than they wanted to pay him, and maybe he wasn't healthy last year, but he should have still been in Washington. And I know I was a little harsh on Jamison Crowder last year, but he was a good football player when healthy and one that the Redskins probably should have retained. But he got some money on the open market. They allowed him to move on. Same can be said for Preston Smith. You look at the Redskins football team over a span of 2010 to 2016. Okay, I threw out 18 and 17 because those 2 drafts, really, the jury is still out on those 2 drafts. Most of those players are still on the roster right now, which is a good thing. In past years, guys haven't even made the roster. So from that perspective, in 2017 and 2018, most of those guys are on the current roster as it stands. Now, we don't know how good all of those players are. We're still evaluating those players. So we'll see what happens and how many of those guys ultimately end up being core Redskins over the next 2 years. But we're going to throw those 2 drafts out because they're still undecided. But if you go back to 2016, a lot of those players should still, that's only 3 drafts ago. All right. Those guys should still be on the football team. Okay. As of right now, there are only 2 players from that draft still on the team. And we're going to go through all the drafts from 2010 to 2016, and you're going to get to a whopping 8 players left from 6 drafts, which is astounding when you think about it, or 7 drafts, excuse me. Astounding that the Redskins, which is one of the worst numbers in the league, only have 8 players from the last 7 drafts combined on their roster as we speak. You look at 2010, there's only 1 guy still standing, and that's far back. That's 7 years ago, okay? So, again, take that one with a grain of salt. There's only 1 player left on the team from 2010's draft. That's Trent Williams, okay? Okay, fine. That's okay. 11, same thing can be said. That was the 2010 draft, that was a 6-player draft. The 2011 draft was a 12-player draft. Only 1 player remains on the roster. That is Ryan Kerrigan. Now you start to get into that area where you should be seeing a little bit more returns on your draft picks in 2012 because now you're getting closer to where guys should still be on the team. 2012, the Redskins drafted 9 players. Not a single one of those guys still remains on the roster from the 2012 NFL Draft. You go to 2013, Jordan Reed and Chris Thompson are the lone 2 survivors of the 2013 draft. That was a 7-player haul for the Redskins. You go to 2014, only 1 player. Again, now this is where you start to see some of the deterioration and some of the problems that the Redskins have had in terms of talent. 2014, not that long ago, yet only 1 player from an 8-player draft, Morgan Moses, remains on this roster. You get to 2015, again, we're getting closer and closer. There should be more and more players on the roster. Instead, Brandon Sheriff, the lone survivor of the 2015 draft, 10 players selected in that draft, only 1 guy still on the roster, that being our first-round pick. That can't be the case. You can't only have your first-round pick from a draft that was a mere 4 years ago. That's insane. That's utterly insane. It's ridiculous. It's why the Redskins are in the position they're in right now. They haven't done a good enough job of drafting and then retaining their talent. You go to 2016, as I just mentioned, only 2 players from a 7-player draft. Those 2 players being your first-round pick once again in Josh Doxson, a guy that you're probably not going to re-sign when his contract is up, and Matt Ioannidis, who just got a new deal from the Redskins. And so that's frustrating. 59 total players selected in a 7-year period, and yet the Redskins only have 8 players to show for that haul. Again, that's not good enough. There should have been 8 players from just the 16, 15, and 14 draft alone on this football team. All right, there should be 8 players just alone from just those 3 drafts combined. Yet the Redskins sit here with just 8 players from 7 years of draft history. Again, if you want to exclude 2010 and 11 because those are kind of far away, fine. That's fine by me. All right, but you still got Kerrigan, you still got Trent Williams from those 2 drafts. But again, that's not enough. So I said that to say this. We have to draft better talent, the kind of guys you'll want to keep after their rookie deal is up. It can't just be the first round guys that you're looking to keep. You got to do better in the second. You got to do better in the third. You got to be better in the fourth and fifth. Those mid-round picks are also core contributors to your football team. We have to be better. So what I'm saying to you is we can't F this draft up. This is a big draft. All right. I feel like this organization is trending in the wrong direction. We've done some good things in the draft of late, and we feel like we're building on the defensive side of football. I don't feel like we have nearly enough talent on the offensive side. We can't F this draft up, and we got to make sure that if they're going to select a quarterback, they better not get it wrong this year. They can't afford to send us 2 steps in the wrong direction with the wrong guy at the quarterback position. If you're going to get a quarterback in the first round, look, if you draft somebody in the second or the third round, honestly, I don't really care if that guy pans out or not. I would like him to, but if he doesn't, I'm not that upset because we waste second round picks anyway. And bottom line is, guys that don't get drafted in the first round, there's nothing guaranteed to them. Hell, Josh Rosen was drafted last year, and it doesn't look like anything's being guaranteed to him in Arizona right now. But that's besides the point. You don't want to be put in a position where if you mess up here in the first round at the quarterback position, you're missing out on other talent that could potentially be helping your football team. So you have to make sure you get this right. If nothing else, at least continue to get the first round picks right. We didn't do it with Josh Doctson, it seems like. So you have to be able to evaluate this talent much better than we have. And so we got to get this draft right. We really need to get this draft right. And so let's get to what I came here for, which is the 5 guarantees, the 5 things the Redskins will do in the upcoming 2019 NFL draft. Let's get to that now. And so for me, number 5 is they'll trade back at least once. They're going to trade back, I feel like, at least one time in this draft at some point. All right. Bruce Allen has shown the ability to wheel and deal in these drafts and move back to pick up, even if it's something as minuscule as picking up a 6th round pick, an additional 6th round pick next year. He's shown the ability to move back 5 spots in the 4th round and pick up an additional 6th round pick in the next year's draft. He's shown the ability, like he did last year, to move back in the 2nd round and pick up a 3rd round pick, which we didn't have. We don't have a 4th rounder this year. Maybe he moves back in the 3rd round, picks up a 4th round pick. Maybe he moves back in the 2nd round, picks up a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick. He's shown the ability, if something's there or maybe something is not there, he's shown the ability to move back rather than move up. And so I don't anticipate the Redskins trading up in this draft, but, there's been a lot of speculation in the first round. Daniel Snyder wants a quarterback. What will happen? Will the Redskins move up to go get a guy like Haskins? Will the Redskins trade for Josh Rosen? There are so many different storylines and so many different angles, so many different things that could take place. I don't think any of those things are going to take place other than the Redskins at some point in this draft will trade back at least once and pick up additional draft capital for the future, whether it's in a future round this year or in a future draft moving forward. The Redskins are going to trade back at some point and pick up an additional pick or 2. Number 4 on this list, the Redskins will draft more offensive players than defensive players in this draft. This is how I see, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on. I don't want to spoil one of my guarantees here. And so I'll just tell you this. When it's all said and done, the Redskins have 9 selections as it stands. Now, obviously, I just said the Redskins are going to trade back. That could net the Redskins an additional pick in this draft. Who's to say? They may end up with 10 picks, and they may end up with a 5-5 split when it's all said and done. If the Redskins stay on an odd number, and right now they're on an odd number, which is 9 selections in this draft, they're going to end up with more offensive players than defensive players. And you know what? I'm not upset about that because the Redskins right now stink on offense. There's no other way to say it. We don't have enough talent at receiver. The running back position is the crown jewel of the offense right now. The tight end position is inconsistent at best. And you also look at the offensive line where we have at least one hole that you can see glaringly at the left guard position, potentially. I'll leave center alone. I like Chase Roullier. He hasn't been able to just stay at center because of all the injuries he's had to bounce around. And so I think we're fine at center. But again, left guard is a source of frustration for most Redskins fans, if not all of them at this point, and it needs to be addressed. Speaking of which, let's go to number 3, and that's a perfect segue. Guard will be addressed in the 3rd round of this draft. I believe Redskins have 2 selections in the 3rd round. Remember, we get the compensatory pick from the Kirk Cousins deal, him signing with Minnesota last year. And so in free agency, the Redskins picked up a compensatory pick, the very first compensatory pick in the 3rd round. So the Redskins have 2 selections at 46 and 76 in the 3rd round, and I firmly believe one of those 2 picks will be spent on an offensive guard. I think that's the first time the Redskins will look to address the guard position in this draft, and I will double down on the guard position in this draft. The Redskins have ignored the guard position for way too long, thinking that Sean Laval can get the job done, and they finally have come to their wits' end with that situation. They're going to draft multiple guards in this draft. I think they're going to draft at least 2. I don't think they're going to draft more than that, but I think they're going to. It wouldn't shock me if they went down and drafted 3, a late 7th round or 2, just to make sure. But I think they're going to draft at least 2 guards in this draft because I think they need help on the interior of this offensive line. There isn't enough depth. If something were to happen to Sheriff, first of all, you need a starter at left guard. That's number 1. But if something were to happen to the new left guard or Sheriff, we need depth. Right now, you can't tell me that you're impressed with Zach Karen or that you love some of the other guys that we have at the guard position. It's just not conducive to having success. There needs to be more depth at offensive guard and in the interior of the offensive line in general. That's why I see the Redskins doubling down on drafting interior offensive linemen in this draft. I think there will be at least 2 of them selected at some point in this draft, with the first of which coming in the 3rd round. And I'm all over the place. As we get to number 2, they're going to draft a receiver in this draft, all right? And I'm more sure of this than ever before. And I think that receiver is going to come at either 46 in the 2nd round or 76 in the 3rd round. Look, the depth at receiver in this draft, I don't think that the top end of the crop is that great. I love N'Keal Harry, but he's not in our wheelhouse at 15. I think that's a little early for N'Keal Harry. I wouldn't mind if the Redskins spent it on a receiver at 15, but if it's going to be 15, it needs to be a guy like Harry, or Marquise Brown. I don't want DK Metcalf. That's what scares me because I think the Redskins are just dumb enough to go the DK Metcalf route. I also think the Redskins are dumb enough to potentially go the Daniel Jones route at 15. We've got some really scary situations that could play out on draft day, 3 of which that would really, really piss me off to no end is if the Redskins went DK Metcalf at 15. Don't think he's a true number 1 in this league, and I think he's got a lot of growing to do as a wide receiver. I don't think he can come in and help you right away. Yes, he's big. Yes, he's fast, but he doesn't have the movement skills necessary to be an elite wide receiver. He doesn't have the route running ability. He's a very stiff guy. There's just fundamental things that you can't teach him, that he can't learn, that he can't do because his body isn't meant to do those things. I just don't see him being an elite receiver, and not to mention his hands aren't all that great. That being said, I don't want DK at 15. I don't want Daniel Jones at 15. I heard Gil Brandt, who I respect a lot and has been in the league for over 100 years. I heard him say that Daniel Jones is Peyton Manning. Are you serious? What are you talking about, Gil? And again, I respect his opinion, but that's blasphemy. What are you talking about? You're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, and you're comparing this guy to that? Stop your nonsense, okay? And then third, I don't want Rashan Gary. And I feel like the Redskins are just dumb enough to do something stupid like that. Hey, we lost Preston Smith. He looks just like Preston Smith. Let's draft Rashan Gary. Like, that would be the dumbest thing in history. But again, that's what our organization does. The dumbest things in history, we do those things. So I'm hoping that they don't do anything of that ilk. Those three things are off the table for me. Anything else in the first round, just about, I probably wouldn't have that problem, or I could at least reconcile it in my brain. Those three things, I don't know if I could really justify those selections at 15. But nonetheless, I think the Redskins are going to attack receiver at 46 or 76. The depth in this draft at receiver is in the second round. And I told you, I think the run on receivers is going to start late first round, in the mid-20s. I think that's when you're going to start seeing these receivers come off the board, and that's going to spill into the second round, and that's where the true value is in this draft. A guy like Kelvin Harmon should be available for the Redskins potentially at 46. I'm hoping. That's the kind of guy I would love to draft and see if he can develop into a number one receiver in this league. I like Kelvin Harmon a lot, and I think that's the kind of guy the Redskins need if they're looking, a guy that can go and get the football, a guy that's physical at the point of catch, a guy that can get behind the defense running double moves. That's something that we lack right now. He doesn't have great top-end speed. That's why you went and signed Paul Richardson last year. For him to be able to be the guy to take the top off the defense, you need a guy that on 3rd and 7, like a Pierre Garçon. We're missing that kind of chain mover right now. You need a guy that can get the football on 3rd and 7. A guy like Kelvin Harmon is that guy at 46. And so I think the value in this draft in the second round is wide receiver. And I think that's when the Redskins, and I didn't attack that early enough on my mock draft, but as I look at this Redskins roster and I look at the receiver position, there isn't a go-to guy at the receiver position. I think Jay Gruden wants that probably more than anything else, which is why I'm scared that they're going to do something stupid like draft DK Metcalf at 15. I think Jay Gruden wants a receiver that can win and win big. And I just hope that they don't reach for someone at 15 and just wait to the second round where someone will be in a sweet spot for them to select in this draft. We'll see what they decide to do. If they don't get it at 46, I surmise that will happen at 76. And then that means if it happens at 76, that means the guard will be the pick at, then I think it's the 90s, like 96 or something like that. That will be the pick that the Redskins will select their guard in the 3rd round. So you see how these dominoes will fall. And finally, the number one thing the Redskins will do in the 2019 NFL draft, they will draft a quarterback. I sat down and I thought about this long and hard about 2 nights ago, and I said to myself, there's no way the Redskins can come out of this draft without a quarterback. And I said this early on in the process, and then I went against my word. And when I did my mock, I didn't give the Redskins a quarterback. It is impossible for the Redskins to come out of this draft without a quarterback. Think about this for a second. All right, the Redskins don't have a quarterback that will be under contract come 2020 if you do not draft a quarterback now. Think about that for a second. Think about what I just said. The Redskins do not have a quarterback that will be under contract if they do not draft a quarterback in the 2019 NFL draft. Case Keenum is on a 1-year deal. So is Colt McCoy. What you have to understand is they need to have at least one guy on this roster. And again, does it have to be the eventual starter? It could just be a potential backup quarterback. They need that guy too. The backup of the future, they need that guy on the roster as well. Okay, so even if it's Will Grier, and if they draft a guy like Will Grier, he's going to get a chance to start. All right. I don't think he's a starter in this league long term. I think he's one of those stopgap backups, career guys. And I gave you my comp for him. Ryan Fitzpatrick is my comp for Will Grier. He looks like Will Grier. I told you he's going to play 10 to 12 years in this league easy, but he's going to be a backup. And I think that's what his role will be in this league. But he's got to get to that point first, which means he's got to start a couple of times and show everyone that, yes, he is a backup. And so I'm hoping that the Redskins don't go that route. But at some point, they're going to have to draft the quarterback. All right, let's face it. I would love the Redskins to get Drew Lock. They're not getting Drew Lock. Maybe they get their hands on Haskins. Probably not going to happen either. So at the end of the day, the Redskins are going to be left with Daniel Jones as an option at 15, which I hope they do not do. But again, I'm not holding my breath. I've been disappointed before, and I won't allow that to happen to me again. So I'm just going to sit and watch And just like everybody else, I'll be a spectator. I won't be expecting anything. I hope for the best, expect the worst. That's what I've been preconditioned to do as a Redskins fan. However, if they don't take a quarterback in the first round, you'll have some options. There'll be the Ryan Finleys and the Will Greers and the Jarrett Stidhams of the world. Those guys will exist in the second round, potentially third round. Well, if you take one of those second, third round flyers on a quarterback, that tells me you don't believe this guy is a starter. You think this guy is a backup quarterback. And either way, you draft a rookie, he's not starting over Case Keenum nor Colt McCoy. So that's nothing to worry about. You draft a guy in the first round, there's an outside chance. You drafted Drew Lock in the first round, most likely he's not going to start, but the door is slightly ajar. That door is slightly ajar. Okay, you draft the second or third round quarterback, that guy is definitely not starting in week one. And really, I don't think any quarterback drafted starts week one. The only guy that I think has an outside shot to start coming from an outside source into this organization would be Josh Rosen coming from Arizona. But that's another story for another day. Bottom line is the Redskins are coming away from this draft with a quarterback. Even if that quarterback comes in the fifth round, they're going to draft someone. I know Jay Gruden said and made this abundantly clear. He does not like carrying 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Well, he may have to do that this year because guess what? The Redskins are coming out of this draft at some point. At some point. Don't ask me when. At some point, the Redskins are going to draft a quarterback in the 2019 NFL draft. They don't have any quarterbacks that will be under contract when this year is up. They have to do something. They're going to do that in this draft, whether it comes in the first round, comes in the second or third, or even in the fifth. They're going to draft a quarterback in 2019. And so those are my 5 items that you can book it right now. The Redskins are going to do in the 2019 NFL draft. I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. I'll see you guys for the mock draft special tonight at, let's call it, I don't know. Don't hold me to a time. I will be live tonight with my mock draft. More videos to come in terms of the Draft Prospects 101 series. And then finally, Thursday night, Draft Party Live. Join me as we watch the draft together. Let's cross our fingers that the Redskins don't F this up. But we can watch it live together and react to whatever the Redskins as well as the other 31 teams in the league do in the 2019 NFL Draft. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.